Machines take me by surprise with great frequency. Codes are a puzzle, a game just like any other game. No, I'm not interested in developing a powerful brain. My little computer said such a funny thing this morning. Science is a differential equation. Religion is a boundary condition. If a machine is expected to be infallible, it cannot also be intelligent. Programming is a skill best acquired by practice and example, rather than from books. We are not interested in the fact that the brain has the consistency of cold porridge. We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done. Unless in communicating with it one says exactly what one means, trouble is bound to result. We may hope that machines will eventually compete with men in all purely intellectual fields. Sometimes it is the people know one imagines anything of who do the things that no one can imagine. The original question, can machines think, I believe to be too meaningless to deserve discussion. Do you know why people like violence? It is because it feels good. Humans find violence deeply satisfying. A computer would deserve to be called intelligent if it could deceive a human into believing that it was human. A man provided with paper, pencil, and rubber, and subject to strict discipline, is in effect a universal machine. Up to a point, it is better to just let the snags bugs be there than to spend such time in design that there are none. One day ladies will take their computers for walks in the park and tell each other, my little computer said such a funny thing this morning. The idea behind digital computers may be explained by saying that these machines are intended to carry out any operations which could be done by a human computer. Do you know why people like violence? It is because it feels good. Humans find violence deeply satisfying, but remove the satisfaction and the act becomes hollow. Mathematical reasoning may be regarded rather schematically as the exercise of a combination of two faculties, which we may call intuition and ingenuity. I believe that at the end of the century, the use of words and general educated opinion will have altered so much that one will be able to speak of machines thinking without expecting to be contradicted. Instead of trying to produce a program to simulate the adult mind, why not rather try to produce one which simulates the child's? If this were then subjected to an appropriate course of education, one would obtain the adult brain. It seems probable that once the machine thinking method had started, it would not take long to outstrip our feeble powers. They would be able to converse with each other to sharpen their wits. At some stage, therefore, we should have to expect the machines to take control. Mathematical reasoning may be regarded rather schematically as the exercise of a combination of two facilities, which we may call intuition and ingenuity. The activity of the intuition consists in making spontaneous judgments which are not the result of conscious trains of reasoning. The exercise of ingenuity in mathematics consists in aiding the intuition through suitable arrangements of propositions, and perhaps geometrical figures or drawings. There is, however, one feature that I would like to suggest should be incorporated in the machines, and that is a random element. Each machine should be supplied with a tape bearing a random series of figures, e.g., 0 and 1 in equal quantities, and this series of figures should be used in the choices made by the machine. This would result in the behavior of the machine not being by any means completely determined by the experiences to which it was subjected, and would have some valuable uses when one was experimenting with it. Machines take me by surprise with great frequency. Codes are a puzzle, a game just like any other game. No, I'm not interested in developing a powerful brain. My little computer said such a funny thing this morning. Science is a differential equation. Religion is a boundary condition. If a machine is expected to be infallible, it cannot also be intelligent. Programming is a skill best acquired by practice and example, rather than from books. We are not interested in the fact that the brain has the consistency of cold porridge. We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done. Unless in communicating with it one says exactly what one means, trouble is bound to result. We may hope that machines will eventually compete with men in all purely intellectual. Man, being is essentially his own deed. 4. Architecture in general is frozen music. All life is founded upon something independent from itself. Nature shall be the visible spirit, and spirit invisible nature. Poison does not attack the body, but the body attacks the poison. The past is known, the present is recognized, the future is divined. Die Nader schlägt im Menschen die Augen auf unbemerkt, das sei de ist. Dead matter has no external world. It is absolutely identical with its world. 1. All rules for study are summed up in this one. Learn only in order to create. To achieve great things we must be self-confined. Mastery is revealed in limitation. The human brain is the highest bloom of the whole organic metamorphosis of the earth. Without contradiction, there would be no life, no movement, no progress, a deadly slumber of all forces. This is not the time to reawaken old oppositions, but rather to seek what lies above and beyond all opposition. The soul of all hatred is love, and in the fiercest rage, what reveals itself is merely the stillness, assailed and stirred up at its innermost center. Learn only in order that you yourself may create. Only this divine ability to create makes a true human being. Without it, one is simply a cleverly constructed machine. 3. The failure to invest in civil justice is directly related to the increase in criminal disorder. The more people feel there is injustice, the more it becomes part of their psyche. The I think, I am, is, since Descartes, the basic mistake of all knowledge. Thinking is not my thinking, and being is not my being, for everything is only of God or of the totality. Nature is supposed to be the visible spirit, and spirit the invisible nature. Here, therefore, in the absolute identity of the spirit within us and the nature outside of us, the problem of how a nature outside of us could be possible must be resolved. That which Dante saw written on the door of the Inferno must be written in a different sense also at the entrance to philosophy. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. Those who look for true philosophy must be bereft of all hope, all desire, all longing. They must not wish for anything, not know anything, must feel completely bare and impoverished. Far from it being true that man and his activity makes the world comprehensible, he is himself the most incomprehensible of all, and drives me relentlessly to the view of the accursedness of all being, a view manifested in so many painful signs in ancient and modern times. It is precisely man who drives me to the final despairing question: why is there something? Why not nothing? Man has been placed on that summit where he contains within him the source of self-impulsion toward good and evil in equal measure. The nexus of the principles within him is not a bond of necessity, but of freedom. He stands at the dividing line. Whatever he chooses will be his act, but he cannot remain in indecision because God must necessarily reveal himself, and because nothing at all in creation can remain ambiguous. Nothing upsets the philosophical mind more than when he hears that from now on all philosophy is supposed to lie caught in the shackles of one system. Never has he felt greater than when he sees before him the infinitude of knowledge. The entire dignity of his science consists in the fact that it will never be completed. In that moment in which he would believe to have completed his system, he would become unbearable to himself. He would, in that moment, cease to be a creator, and would instead descend to being an instrument of his creation. There is no greatness without a continual solicitation to madness which, while it must be overcome, must never be completely lacking. One might profit by classifying men in this respect. The one kind are those in whom there is no madness at all, and are so-called men of intellect whose works and deeds are nothing but cold works and deeds of the intellect. But where there is no madness, there is, to be sure, also no real, active, living intellect. For wherein is intellect to prove itself, but in the conquest, mastery, and ordering of madness? Following the eternal act of self-revelation, the world as we now behold it is all rule, order, and form, but the unruly lies ever in the depths as though it might again break through, and order and form nowhere appear to have been original, but it seems as though what had initially been unruly had been brought to order. This is the incomprehensible basis of reality in things, the irreducible remainder which cannot be resolved into reason by the greatest exertion, but always remains in the depths. Out of this which is unreasonable, reason in the true sense is born. Without this preceding gloom, creation would have no reality. Darkness is its necessary heritage. Machines take me by surprise with great frequency. Codes are a puzzle, a game just like any other game. No, I'm not interested in developing a powerful brain. My little computer said such a funny thing this morning. Science is a differential equation. Religion is a boundary condition. If a machine is expected to be infallible, it cannot also be intelligent. Programming is a skill best acquired by practice and example, rather than from books. We are not interested in the fact that the brain has the consistency of cold porridge. We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done. Unless in communicating with it one says exactly what one means, trouble is bound to result. We may hope that machines will eventually compete with men in all purely intellectual fields. Sometimes it is the logic sometimes creates monsters. It is by logic that we prove, but by intuition that we discover. Mathematics is the art of giving the same name to different things. It is through science that we prove, but through intuition that we discover. Thought is only a flash in the middle of a long night, but this flash means everything. Guessing before proving. Need I remind you that it is so that all important discoveries have been made? The scientist's brain, which is but a corner of the universe, will never be able to contain the entire universe. Experiment is the sole source of truth. It alone can teach us something new. It alone can give us certainty. To doubt everything and to believe everything are two equally convenient solutions. Each saves us from thinking. Pure logic could never lead us to anything but tautologies. It can create nothing new. Not from it alone can any science issue. If we wish to foresee the future of mathematics, our proper course is to study the history and present condition of the science. It is by logic that we prove, but by intuition that we discover. To know how to criticize is good, to know how to create is better. In one word, to draw the rule from experience, one must generalize. This is a necessity that imposes itself on the most circumspect observer. Physicists believe that the Gaussian law has been proved in mathematics, while mathematicians think that it was experimentally established in physics. The mathematician does not study pure mathematics because it is useful. He studies it because he delights in it, and he delights in it because it is beautiful. The scientist must set in order. Science is built up with facts, as a house is with stones. But a collection of facts is no more a science than a heap of stones is a house. A reality completely independent of the spirit that conceives it, sees it, or feels it, is an impossibility. A world so external as that, even if it existed, would be forever inaccessible to us. Most striking at first is this appearance of sudden illumination, a manifest sign of long, unconscious prior work. The role of this unconscious work in mathematical invention appears to me incontestable. Why is it that showers and even storms seem to come by chance, so that many people think it quite natural to pray for rain or fine weather, though they would consider it ridiculous to ask for an eclipse by prayer? Mathematicians do not deal in objects, but in relations between objects. Thus, they are free to replace some objects by others so long as the relations remain unchanged. Content to them is irrelevant, They are interested in form only. Thinking must never submit itself, neither to a dogma, nor to a party, nor to a passion, nor to an interest, nor to a preconceived idea, nor to whatever it may be, if not to facts themselves, because, for it, to submit would be to cease to be. La pensée ni doit jamais se soumettre, ni à un dogme, ni à un party, ni à une passion, ni à un intérêt, ni à une idée préconçue, ni à quoi que ce soit. Si est aux faits humains parce que pour elle se soumettre, si serait cesser d'être. The aim of mathematical physics is not only to facilitate for the physicist the numerical calculation of certain constants, or the integration of certain differential equations. It is above all, to reveal to him the hidden harmony of things in making him see them in a new way. How is it that there are so many minds that are incapable of understanding mathematics, the skeleton of our understanding, and actually they are the majority? We have here a problem that is not easy of solution, but yet must engage the attention of all who wish to devote themselves to education. The philosophers make still another objection. What you gain in rigor, they say, you lose in objectivity. You can rise toward your logical ideal only by cutting the bonds which attach you to reality. Your science is infallible, but it can only remain so by imprisoning itself in an ivory tower and renouncing all relation with the external world. From this seclusion it must go out when it would attempt the slightest application. Machines take me by surprise with great frequency. Codes are a puzzle, a game just like any other game. No, I'm not interested in developing a powerful brain. My little computer said such a funny thing this morning. Science is a differential equation. Religion is a boundary condition. If a machine is expected to be infallible, it cannot also be intelligent. Programming is a skill best acquired by practice and example, rather than from books. We are not interested in the fact that the brain has the consistency of cold porridge. We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done. Unless in communicating with it one says exactly what one means, trouble is bound to result. We may hope that machines will eventually compete with men in all purely intellectual fields. Sometimes it is the people know, one imagines anything of who do the heart has its reasons which reason knows not. To ridicule philosophy is really to philosophize. You always admire what you really don't understand. Kind words don't cost much, yet they accomplish much. Dull minds are never either intuitive or mathematical. I would prefer an intelligent hell to a stupid paradise. To make light of philosophy is to be a true philosopher. When one does not love too much, one does not love enough. Little things comfort us because little things distress us. It is man's natural sickness to believe that he possesses the truth. The last thing one discovers in composing a work is what to put first. Do you wish people to think well of you? Don't speak well of yourself. All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. I made this letter very long because I did not have the leisure to make it shorter. I have only made this letter longer because I have not had the time to make it shorter. Il n'est pas certain que tout soit incertain. It is not certain that everything is uncertain. Men never do evil so completely and cheerfully as when they do it from religious conviction. Curiosity is only vanity. We usually only want to know something so that we can talk about it. Man's sensitivity to the little things and insensitivity to the greatest are the signs of a strange disorder. We are generally the better persuaded by the reasons we discover ourselves than by those given to us by others. Man is equally incapable of seeing the nothingness from which he emerges and the infinity in which he is engulfed. I lay it down as a fact that if all men knew what others say of them, there would not be 4 friends in the world. Truth is so obscure in these times, and falsehood so established, that, unless we love the truth, we cannot know it. The heart has its reasons which reason knows nothing of. We know the truth not only by the reason, but by the heart. The greater intellect one has, the more originality one finds in men. Ordinary persons find no difference between men. People almost invariably arrive at their beliefs not on the basis of proof, but on the basis of what they find attractive. Clarity of mind means clarity of passion, too. This is why a great and clear mind loves ardently and sees distinctly what it loves. There is a God-shaped vacuum in the heart of each man which cannot be satisfied by any created thing, but only by God the Creator, made known through Jesus Christ. If we submit everything to reason, our religion will be left with nothing mysterious or supernatural. If we offend the principles of reason, our religion will be absurd and ridiculous. There are two equally dangerous extremes: to exclude reason, to admit nothing but reason. All men seek happiness. This is without exception. Whatever different means they employ, they all tend to this end. The cause of some going to war and of others avoiding it is the same desire in both, attended with different views. The will never takes the least step but to this object. This is the motive of every action of every man, even of those who hang themselves. Machines take me by surprise with great frequency. Codes are a puzzle, a game just like any other game. No, I'm not interested in developing a powerful brain. My little computer said such a funny thing this morning. Science is a differential equation. Religion is a boundary condition. If a machine is expected to be infallible, it cannot also be intelligent. Programming is a skill best acquired by practice and example, rather than from books. We are not interested in the fact that the brain has the consistency of cold porridge. We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done. Unless in communicating with it one says exactly what one means, trouble is bound to result. We may hope that man is the cruelest animal. The will to power, the will to power. Without music, life would be a mistake. There are no facts, only interpretations. That which does not kill us makes us stronger. In heaven, all the interesting people are missing. He who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow. You must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star. I cannot believe in a God who wants to be praised all the time. Is man merely a mistake of God's, or God merely a mistake of man? The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly. When we are tired, we are attacked by ideas we conquered long ago. We should consider every day lost on which we have not danced at least once. It is not a lack of love, but a lack of friendship that makes unhappy marriages. I'm not upset that you lied to me. I'm upset that from now on I can't believe you. Every deep thinker is more afraid of being understood than of being misunderstood. There is always some madness in love, but there is also always some reason in madness. It is hard enough to remember my opinions, without also remembering my reasons for them. The man of knowledge must be able not only to love his enemies, but also to hate his friends. In individuals, insanity is rare, but in groups, parties, nations, and epochs it is the rule. And those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music. Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed. The thought of suicide is a great consolation. By means of it one gets through many a dark night. The advantage of a bad memory is that one enjoys several times the same good things for the first time. You have your way, I have my way. As for the right way, the correct way, and the only way, it does not exist. No one can construct for you the bridge upon which precisely you must cross the stream of life, no one but you yourself alone. I am a forest, and a night of dark trees, but he who is not afraid of my darkness will find banks full of roses under my cypresses. The surest way to corrupt a youth is to instruct him to hold in higher esteem those who think alike than those who think differently. The snake which cannot cast its skin has to die. As well the minds which are prevented from changing their opinions, they cease to be mind. Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster, and if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you. The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try it, you will be lonely often and sometimes frightened, but no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. Machines take me by surprise with great frequency. Codes are a puzzle, a game just like any other game. No, I'm not interested in developing a powerful brain. My little computer said such a funny thing this morning. Science is a differential equation. Religion is a boundary condition. If a machine is expected to be infallible, it cannot also be intelligent. Programming is a skill best acquired by practice and example, rather than from books. We are not interested in the fact that the brain has the consistency of cold porridge. We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done. Unless in communicating with it one says exactly what one means, trouble is bound to result. We may hope that machines will eventually compete with men in all purely intellectual fields. Sometimes it is the people know one imagines anything of who do the things that no one can imagine. The original question, can machines think, I believe to be too meaningless. The angels with us unawares. We rarely know till wildered eyes. In this dim world of clouding cares, our dearest hopes in pangs are born. The kingliest kings are crowned with thorn. The deepest dark reveals the starriest hope. When man to man shall be friend and brother. In the wounds our sufferings plow immortal love sows sovereign seed. The future, like a fruitfuler summer, sits ripening her Eden silently. Still all the day the iron wheels go onward, grinding life down from its mark. All the rarest hues of human life take radiance and are rainbowed out in tears. A sweet new blossom of humanity, fresh fallen from God's own home, to flower on earth. Upon love's bosom earth floats like an ark, safely through all the deluge of the dark. They must find it hard to take truth for authority, who have so long mistaken authority for truth. There's no dearth of kindness in the world of ours. Only in our blindness we gather thorns for flowers. This world is full of beauty, as other worlds above, and if we did our duty, it might be as full of love. Love raise us round as glory swathe the star, and from the mystic touch of lips and palms streams rosy warmth. They must find it difficult, those who have taken authority as the truth, rather than truth as the authority. I know no better way of waging the battle for truth than arraying the facts face to face on either side and letting them fight it out. Not by appointment do we meet delight and joy. They heed not our expectancy, but round some corner in the streets of life, they, on a sudden, clasp us with a smile. O youth, flame earnest, still aspire with energies immortal. To many a heaven of desire our yearning opes a portal, and though age wearies by the way and hearts break in the furrow, we'll sow the golden grain today, the harvest comes tomorrow. Cling closer, closer, life to life, cling closer, heart to heart. The time will come, my own wed wife, when you and I must part. Let nothing break our band but death, for in the world above 'tis the breaker death that soldereth our ring of wedded love. The mass of people who are Bible-taught never get free from the erroneous impressions stamped on their minds in their infancy, so that their manhood or womanhood can have no intellectual fulfillment, and millions of them only attain mentally to a sort of second childhood. The heart is like an instrument whose strings steal nobler music from life's many frets. The golden threads are spun through suffering's fire, wherewith the marriage robes for heaven are woven, and all the rarest hues of human life take radiance and are rainbowed out in tears. The plow of time breaks up our Eden land and tramples down its fruitful flowery prime. Yet through the dust of ages living shoots the old immortal seeds start in the furrows, and where love looked on with glorious eye, these quickened germs of everlastingness flower lusty, as of old in paradise. I was a dweller amid shadows grim, till freedom touched my yearning eyes, and lo, life in a shining circle rounding rose, as heaven on heaven goes up the jeweled night. New floods of passionate life swirled at my heart, like ocean surges rolling round the world, and freedom was my glittering bride. Gerald Massey, 1998. The Natural Genesis, or second part of a book of the beginnings, containing an attempt to recover and reconstitute the lost origins of the myths and mysteries, types and symbols, religion and language, with Egypt for the mouthpiece and Africa as the birthplace. Black Classic PR. Christianity was neither original nor unique, but that the roots of much of the Judeo-Christian tradition lay in the prevailing Kamite, ancient Egyptian, culture of the region. We are faced with the inescapable realization that if Jesus had been able to read the documents of old Egypt, he would have been amazed to find his own biography already substantially written some 4,000 or 5,000 years previously. Machines take me by surprise with great frequency. Codes are a puzzle, a game just like any other game. No, I'm not interested in developing a powerful brain. My little computer said such a funny thing this morning. Science is a differential equation. Religion is a boundary condition. If a machine is expected to be infallible, it cannot also be intelligent. Programming is a skill best acquired by practice and example, rather than from books. We are not interested in the fact that the brain has the consistency of cold porridge. We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done. Unless in communicating with it one says exactly what one means, trouble is bound to result. We may hope that machines will eventually compete. Conservatives are not necessarily stupid, but most stupid people are conservatives. Bad men need nothing more to compass their ends than that good men should look on and do nothing. I have learned to seek my happiness by limiting my desires, rather than in attempting to satisfy them. It is not because men's desires are strong that they act ill. It is because their consciences are weak. A person may cause evil to others not only by his actions, but by his inaction, and in either case, he is justly accountable to them for the injury. No one can be a great thinker who does not recognize that, as a thinker, it is his first duty to follow his intellect, to whatever conclusions it may lead. Persons of genius, it is true, are and are always likely to be a small minority, but in order to have them, it is necessary to preserve the soil in which they grow. Every man who says frankly and fully what he thinks is so far doing a public service. We should be grateful to him for attacking most unsparingly our most cherished opinions. The only freedom which deserves the name is that of pursuing our own good in our own way, so long as we do not attempt to deprive others of theirs, or impede their efforts to obtain it. I will call no being good who is not what I mean when I apply that epithet to my fellow creatures, and if such a creature can sentence me to hell for not so calling him, to hell I will go. A state which dwarfs its men, in order that they may be more docile instruments in its hands even for beneficial purposes, will find that with small men no great thing can really be accomplished. The human faculties of perception, judgment, discriminative feeling, mental activity, and even moral preference are exercised only in making a choice. He who does anything because it is the custom makes no choice. If all mankind minus one were of one opinion and only one person were of the contrary opinion, mankind would be no more justified in silencing that one person than he, if he had the power, would be justified in silencing mankind. It is better to be a human being dissatisfied than a pig satisfied, Better to be Socrates dissatisfied than a fool satisfied. And if the fool, or the pig, is of a different opinion, it is only because they only know their own side of the question. Even despotism does not produce its worst effects, so long as individuality exists under it. And whatever crushes individuality is despotism, by whatever name it may be called, and whether it professes to be enforcing the will of God or the injunctions of men. Stupidity is much the same all the world over. A stupid person's notions and feelings may confidently be inferred from those which prevail in the circle by which the person is surrounded. Not so with those whose opinions and feelings are an emanation from their own nature and faculties. The creed which accepts as the foundation of morals, utility, or the greatest happiness principle, holds that actions are right in proportion as they tend to promote happiness, wrong as they tend to produce the reverse of happiness. By happiness is intended pleasure, and the absence of pain; by unhappiness, pain, and the privation of pleasure. To think that because those who wield power in society wield in the end that of government, therefore it is of no use to attempt to influence the constitution of the government by acting on opinion, is to forget that opinion is itself one of the greatest active social forces. One person with a belief is a social power equal to 99 who have only interests. Christian morality, so-called, has all the characters of a reaction. It is in great part a protest against paganism. Its ideal is negative rather than positive, passive rather than action, innocence rather than nobleness, abstinence from evil rather than energetic pursuit of good. In its precepts, as has been well said, "Thou shalt not" predominates unduly over "thou shalt." The only way in which a human being can make some approach to knowing the whole of a subject is by hearing what can be said about it by persons of every variety of opinion, and studying all modes in which it can be looked at by every character of mind. No wise man ever acquired his wisdom in any mode but this, nor is it in the nature of human intellect to become wise in any other manner. It still remains unrecognized that to bring a child into existence without a fair prospect of being able, not only to provide food for its body, but instruction and training for its mind, is a moral crime, both against the unfortunate offspring and against society, and that if the parent does not fulfill this obligation, the state ought to see it fulfilled at the charge as far as possible of the parent. The only freedom which deserves the name is that of pursuing our own good in our own way, so long as we do not attempt to deprive others of theirs, or impede their efforts to obtain it. Each is the proper guardian of his own health, whether bodily, or mental, or spiritual. Mankind are greater gainers by suffering each other to live as seems good to themselves, than by compelling each to live as seems good to the rest. The peculiar evil of silencing the expression of an opinion is that it is robbing the human race, posterity as well as the existing generation, those who dissent from the opinion, still more than those who hold it. If the opinion is right, they are deprived of the opportunity of exchanging error for truth. If wrong, they lose what is almost as great a benefit, the clearer perception and livelier impression of truth, produced by its collision with error. It is indisputable that the being whose capacities of enjoyment are low has the greatest chance of having them fully satisfied, and a highly endowed being will always feel that any happiness which he can look for, as the world is constituted, is imperfect. But he can learn to bear its imperfections, if they are at all bearable, and they will not make him envy the being who is indeed unconscious of the imperfections, but only because he feels not at all the good which those imperfections qualify. In this age, the mere example of nonconformity, the mere refusal to bend the knee to custom, is itself a service, precisely because the tyranny of opinion is such as to make eccentricity a reproach. It is desirable, in order to break through that tyranny, that people should be eccentric. Eccentricity has always abounded when and where strength of character has abounded, and the amount of eccentricity in a society has generally been proportional to the amount of genius, mental vigor, and moral courage which it contained. That so few now dare to be eccentric marks the chief danger of the time. He who knows only his own side of the case knows little of that. His reasons may be good, and no one may have been able to refute them, but if he is equally unable to refute the reasons on the opposite side, if he does not so much as know what they are, he has no ground for preferring either opinion. Nor is it enough that he should hear the opinions of adversaries from his own teachers, presented as they state them, and accompanied by what they offer as refutations. He must be able to hear them from persons who actually believe them. He must know them in their most plausible and persuasive form. I consider it presumption in anyone to pretend to decide what women are or are not, can or cannot be, by natural constitution. They have always hitherto been kept, as far as regards spontaneous development, in so unnatural a state that their nature cannot but have been greatly distorted and disguised. And no one can safely pronounce that if women's nature were left to choose its direction as freely as men's, and if no artificial bent were attempted to be given to it except that required by the conditions of human society, and given to both sexes alike, there would be any material difference, or perhaps any difference at all, in the character and capacities which would unfold themselves. I never meant to say that the conservatives are generally stupid. I meant to say that stupid people are generally conservative. I believe that is so obviously and universally admitted a principle that I hardly think any gentleman will deny it. Suppose any party, in addition to whatever share it may possess of the ability of the community, has nearly the whole of its stupidity, that party must, by the law of its constitution, be the stupidest party, and I do not see why honorable gentlemen should see that position as at all offensive to them, for it ensures their being always an extremely powerful party. There is so much dense, solid force in sheer stupidity, that any body of able men with that force pressing behind them may ensure victory in many a struggle, and many a victory the conservative party has gained through that power. War is an ugly thing, but not the ugliest of things. The decayed and degraded state of moral and patriotic feeling which thinks that nothing is worth a war is much worse. When a people are used as mere human instruments for firing cannon or thrusting bayonets, in the service and for the selfish purposes of a master, such war degrades a people. A war to protect other human beings against tyrannical injustice, a war to give victory to their own ideas of right and good, and which is their own war, carried on for an honest purpose by their free choice, is often the means of their regeneration. A man who has nothing which he is willing to fight for, nothing which he cares more about than he does about his personal safety, is a miserable creature who has no chance of being free, unless made and kept so by the exertions of better men than himself. As long as justice and injustice have not terminated their ever-renewing fight for ascendancy in the affairs of mankind, human beings must be willing, when need is, to do battle for the one against the other. Those only are happy, I thought, who have their minds fixed on some object other than their own happiness, on the happiness of others, on the improvement of mankind, even on some art or pursuit, followed not as a means but as itself an ideal end. Aiming thus at something else, they find happiness by the way. The enjoyments of life, such was now my theory, are sufficient to make it a pleasant thing, when they are taken in passant without being made a principal object. Once make them so, and they are immediately felt to be insufficient. They will not bear a scrutinizing examination. Ask yourself whether you are happy, and you cease to be so. The only chance is to treat, not happiness, but some end external to it, as the purpose of life. Let your self-consciousness, your scrutiny, your self-interrogation, exhaust themselves on that. And if otherwise fortunately circumstanced, you will inhale happiness with the air you breathe, without dwelling on it or thinking about it, without either forestalling it in imagination or putting it to flight by fatal questioning. Since every country stands in numerous and various relations with the other countries of the world, and many, our own among the number, exercise actual authority over some of these, A knowledge of the established rules of international morality is essential to the duty of every nation, and therefore of every person in it who helps to make up the nation, and whose voice and feeling form a part of what is called public opinion. Let not anyone pacify his conscience by the delusion that he can do no harm if he takes no part and forms no opinion. Bad men need nothing more to compass their ends than that good men should look on and do nothing. He is not a good man who, without a protest, allows wrong to be committed in his name, and with the means which he helps to supply, because he will not trouble himself to use his mind on the subject. It depends on the habit of attending to and looking into public transactions, and on the degree of information and solid judgment respecting them that exists in the community, whether the conduct of the nation as a nation, both within itself and towards others, shall be selfish, corrupt and tyrannical, or rational and enlightened, just and noble. The object of this essay is to assert one very simple principle, as entitled to govern absolutely the dealings of society with the individual in the way of compulsion and control, whether the means used be physical force in the form of legal penalties, or the moral coercion of public opinion. That principle is, that the sole end for which mankind are warranted, individually or collectively in interfering with the liberty of action of any of their number, is self-protection. That the only purpose for which power can be rightfully exercised over any member of a civilized community against his will is to prevent harm to others. His own good, either physical or moral, is not a sufficient warrant. He cannot rightfully be compelled to do or forbear because it will be better for him to do so, because it will make him happier, because, in the opinions of others, to do so would be wise or even right. These are good reasons for remonstrating with him, or reasoning with him, or persuading him, or entreating him, but not for compelling him, or visiting him with any evil, in case he do otherwise. To justify that, the conduct from which it is desired to deter him must be calculated to produce evil to someone else. The only part of the conduct of anyone for which he is amenable to society is that which concerns others. In the part which merely concerns himself, his independence is, of right, absolute. Over himself, over his own body and mind, the individual is sovereign. Machines take me by surprise with great frequency. Codes are a puzzle, a game just like any other game. No, I'm not interested in developing a powerful brain. My little computer said such a funny thing this morning. Science is a differential equation. Religion is a boundary condition. If a machine is expected to be infallible, it cannot also be intelligent. Programming is a skill best acquired by practice and example, rather than from books. We are not interested in the fact that the brain has the consistency of cold porridge. We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done. Unless in communicating with it one says exactly what one means, trouble is bound to result. We may hope that machines will eventually compete with men in all purely intellectual fields. Sometimes it is the people know, one imagines, the more we know, the more we feel our ignorance, the more we feel how much remains unknown. You are now in a state in which a fly would be, whose microscopic eye was changed to one similar to that of man, and you are wholly unable to associate what you see with your former knowledge. Life is made up, not of great sacrifices or duties, but of little things in which smiles and kindnesses and small obligations, given habitually, are what win and preserve the heart and secure comfort. Nothing is so fatal to the progress of the human mind as to suppose our views of science are ultimate, that there are no mysteries in nature, that our triumphs are complete, and that there are no new worlds to conquer. Nothing is so dangerous to the progress of the human mind than to assume that our views of science are ultimate, that there are no mysteries in nature, that our triumphs are complete, and that there are no new worlds to conquer. But if the two countries or governments are at war, the men of science are not. That would, indeed, be a civil war of the worst description. We should rather, through the instrumentality of the men of science, softened the asperities of national hostility. Cuvier had even in his address and manner the character of a superior man, much general power and eloquence in conversation, and great variety of information on scientific as well as popular subjects. I should say of him that he is the most distinguished man of talents I have ever known on the continent. Cavendish was a great man with extraordinary singularities. His voice was squeaking, his manner nervous, he was afraid of strangers, and seemed when embarrassed to articulate with difficulty. He wore the costume of our grandfathers, was enormously rich but made no use of his wealth. Cavendish lived latterly the life of a solitary, came to the club dinner and to the Royal Society, but received nobody at his home. He was acute, sagacious, and profound, and I think the most accomplished British philosopher of his time. Natural science is founded on minute critical views of the general order of events taking place upon our globe, corrected, enlarged, or exalted by experiments, in which the agents concerned are placed under new circumstances, and their diversified properties separately examined. The body of natural science, then, consists of facts, is analogy, the relation of resemblance of facts by which its different parts are connected, arranged, and employed, either for popular use or for new speculative improvements. John Dalton was a very singular man. He has none of the manners or ways of the world. A tolerable mathematician, he gained his livelihood, I believe, by teaching the mathematics to young people. He pursued science always with mathematical views. He seemed little attentive to the labors of men, except when they countenanced or confirmed his own ideas. He was a very disinterested man, seemed to have no ambition beyond that of being thought a good philosopher. He was a very coarse experimenter, and almost always found the results he required. Memory and observation were subordinate qualities in his mind. He followed with ardor analogies and inductions, and however his claims to originality may admit of question, I have no doubt that he was one of the most original philosophers of his time and one of the most ingenious. The moment after, I began to respire 20 quarts of unmingled nitrous oxide. A thrilling, extending from the chest to the extremities, was almost immediately produced. I felt a sense of tangible extension highly pleasurable in every limb. My visible impressions were dazzling and apparently magnified. I heard distinctly every sound in the room and was perfectly aware of my situation. By degrees, as the pleasurable sensations increased, I lost all connection with external things. Trains of vivid visible images rapidly passed through my mind, and were connected with words in such a manner as to produce perceptions perfectly novel. I existed in a world of newly connected and newly modified ideas. I theorized. I imagined that I made discoveries. When I was awakened from this semi-delirious trance by Dr. Kinglake, who took the bag from my mouth, indignation and pride were the first feelings produced by the sight of the persons about me. My emotions were enthusiastic and sublime, and for a minute I walked round the room, perfectly regardless of what was said to me. As I recovered my former state of mind, I felt an inclination to communicate the discoveries I had made during the experiment. I endeavored to recall the ideas. They were feeble and indistinct. One collection of terms, however, presented itself, and with the most intense belief and prophetic manner, I exclaimed to Dr. Kinglake, "Nothing exists but thoughts. The universe is composed of impressions, ideas, pleasures, and pains. Machines take me by surprise with great frequency. Codes are a puzzle, a game just like any other game. No, I'm not interested in developing a powerful brain. My little computer said such a funny thing this morning. Science is a differential equation. Religion is a boundary condition. If a machine is expected to be infallible, it cannot also be intelligent. Programming is a skill best acquired by practice and example, rather than from books. We are not interested in the fact that the brain has the consistency of cold porridge. We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done. Unless in communicating with it one says exactly what one means, trouble is bound to result. We may hope that machines will eventually compete with men in all purely intellectual fields. Hell is truth seen too late. The law is the public conscience. Life is nasty, brutish, and short. Leisure is the mother of philosophy. If nobody makes you do it, it counts as fun. It is not wisdom but authority that makes a law. Where there is no common power, there is no law. Unnecessary laws are not good laws, but traps for money. Humans are driven by a perpetual and restless desire of power. The passions of men are commonly more potent than their reason. For if all things were equally in all men, nothing would be prized. Religions are like pills, which must be swallowed whole without chewing. Life in the state of nature is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. The condition of man is a condition of war of everyone against everyone. The first and fundamental law of nature, which is, to seek peace and follow it. If any two men desire the same thing, which nevertheless they cannot both enjoy, they become enemies. All men among themselves are by nature equal. The inequality we now discern hath its spring from the civil law. Ignorance of the law is no good excuse, where every man is bound to take notice of the laws to which he is subject. Government is necessary, not because man is naturally bad, but because man is by nature more individualistic than social. The original of all great and lasting societies consisted not in the mutual good will men had toward each other, but in the mutual fear they had of each other. The right of nature is the liberty each man hath to use his own power as he will himself for the preservation of his own nature, that is to say, of his own life. How could a state be governed, or protected in its foreign relations, if every individual remained free to obey, or not to obey the law according to his private opinion? A democracy is no more than an aristocracy of orators. The people are so readily moved by demagogues that control must be exercised by the government over speech and press. There is no such thing as perpetual tranquility of mind while we live here, because life itself is but motion and can never be without desire, nor without fear, no more than without sense. To this war of every man against every man, this also inconsequent, that nothing can be unjust. The notions of right and wrong, justice and injustice have there no place. Where there is no common power, there is no law, where no law, no injustice. Force and fraud are in war the cardinal virtues. Machines take me by surprise with great frequency. Codes are a puzzle, a game just like any other game. No, I'm not interested in developing a powerful brain. My little computer said such a funny thing this morning. Science is a differential equation. Religion is a boundary condition. If a machine is expected to be infallible, it cannot also be intelligent. Programming is a skill best acquired by practice and example, rather than from books. We are not interested in the fact that the brain has the consistency of cold porridge. We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done. Unless in communicating with it one says exactly what one means, trouble is bound to result. We may hope that machines will eventually compete. I'm smart enough to know that I'm dumb. Science is the belief in the ignorance of experts. You do not know anything until you have practiced. Scientists are explorers, philosophers are tourists. Don't pay attention to authorities, think for yourself. You can always recognize truth by its beauty and simplicity. Religion is a culture of faith, science is a culture of doubt. We never are definitely right, we can only be sure we are wrong. The highest forms of understanding we can achieve are laughter and human compassion. If you think you understand quantum mechanics, you don't understand quantum mechanics. The only way to deep happiness is to do something you love to the best of your ability. I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned. Physics is like sex. Sure, it may give some practical results, but that's not why we do it. We need to teach how doubt is not to be feared but welcomed. It's okay to say, I don't know. If you can't explain something to a first-year student, then you haven't really understood. The first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. I learned very early the difference between knowing the name of something and knowing something. Our responsibility is to do what we can, learn what we can, improve the solutions, and pass them on. Study hard what interests you the most in the most undisciplined, irreverent, and original manner possible. It doesn't matter how beautiful your theory is. It doesn't matter how smart you are. If it doesn't agree with experiment, it's wrong. You have no responsibility to live up to what other people think you ought to accomplish. I have no responsibility to be like they expect me to be. It's their mistake, not my failing. We absolutely must leave room for doubt, or there is no progress and no learning. There is no learning without having to pose a question, and a question requires doubt. People search for certainty, but there is no certainty. First you guess. Don't laugh, this is the most important step. Then you compute the consequences. Compare the consequences to experience. If it disagrees with experience, the guess is wrong. In that simple statement is the key to science. It doesn't matter how beautiful your guess is, or how smart you are, or what your name is. If it disagrees with experience, it's wrong. That's all there is to it. Fall in love with some activity and do it. Nobody ever figures out what life is all about, and it doesn't matter. Explore the world. Nearly everything is really interesting if you go into it deeply enough. Work as hard and as much as you want to on the things you like to do the best. Don't think about what you want to be, but what you want to do. Keep up some kind of a minimum with other things so that society doesn't stop you from doing anything at all. No government has the right to decide on the truth of scientific principles, nor to prescribe in any way the character of the questions investigated. Neither may a government determine the aesthetic value of artistic creations, nor limit the forms of literacy or artistic expression. Nor should it pronounce on the validity of economic, historic, religious, or philosophical doctrines. Instead, it has a duty to its citizens to maintain the freedom, to let those citizens contribute to the further adventure and the development of the human race. Machines take me by surprise with great frequency. Codes are a puzzle, a game just like any other game. No, I'm not interested in developing a powerful brain. My little computer said such a funny thing this morning. Science is a differential equation. Religion is a boundary condition. If a machine is expected to be infallible, it cannot also be intelligent. Programming is a skill best acquired by practice and example, rather than from books. We are not interested in the fact that the brain has the consistency of cold porridge. We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done. Unless in communicating with it one says exactly what one means, trouble is bound to result. We may hope that machines will eventually compete with men in all purely intellectual fields. Sometimes it is the people know one imagines anything of who do the things that no one can imagine. The original question, can machines think, I believe to be too. Logic is the foundation of the certainty of all the knowledge we acquire. Madam, I have just come from a country where people are hanged if they talk. Nothing takes place in the world whose meaning is not that of some maximum or minimum. It is mathematics that protects us from the deception of the senses and teaches us the difference between appearance and truth. Mathematicians have tried in vain to this day to discover some order in the sequence of prime numbers, and we have reason to believe that it is a mystery into which the human mind will never penetrate. The kind of knowledge which is supported only by observations and is not yet proved must be carefully distinguished from the truth. It is gained by induction, as we usually say. Yet we have seen cases in which mere induction led to error. Machines take me by surprise with great frequency. Codes are a puzzle, a game just like any other game. No, I'm not interested in developing a powerful brain. My little computer said such a funny thing this morning. Science is a differential equation. Religion is a boundary condition. If a machine is expected to be infallible, it cannot also be intelligent. Programming is a skill best acquired by practice and example, rather than from books. We are not interested in the fact that the brain has the consistency of cold porridge. We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done. Unless in communicating with it one says exactly what one means, trouble is bound to result. We may hope that machines will eventually compete with men in all purely intellectual fields. Sometimes it is the people know one imagines anything of who do the things that no one can imagine. Your library is your paradise. Bidden or unbidden, God is present. The desire to write grows with writing. He who allows oppression shares the crime. War is sweet to those who have not experienced it. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Give light, and the darkness will disappear of itself. War is delightful to those who have had no experience of it. A good portion of speaking will consist in knowing how to lie. The most disadvantageous peace is better than the most just war. A nail is driven out by another nail. Habit is overcome by habit. Everybody hates a prodigy, detests an old head on young shoulders. The chief element of happiness is this, to want to be what you are. The main hope of a nation lies in the proper education of its youth. The highest form of bliss is living with a certain degree of folly. Before you sleep, read something that is exquisite and worth remembering. The summit of happiness is reached when a person is ready to be what he is. Human affairs are so obscure and various that nothing can be clearly known. When I get a little money, I buy books. If any is left, I buy food and clothes. If you keep thinking about what you want to do or what you hope will happen, you don't do it, and it won't happen. Only a very few can be learned, but all can be Christian, all can be devout, and I shall boldly add all can be theologians. It is a sneaking piece of cowardice for authors to put feigned names to their works, as if, like bastards of their brain, they were afraid to own them. For anyone who loves intensely lives not in himself, but in the object of his love, and the further he can move out of himself into his love, the happier he is. At last concluded that no creature was more miserable than man, for that all other creatures are content with those bounds that nature set them, only man endeavors to exceed them. Given a choice between a folly and a sacrament, one should always choose the folly, because we know a sacrament will not bring us closer to God, and there's always the chance that a folly will. Now what else is the whole life of mortals, but a sort of comedy in which the various actors, disguised by various costumes and masks, walk on and play each one's part until the manager walks them off the stage. I consider as lovers of books not those who keep their books hidden in their store chests and never handle them, but those who, by nightly as well as daily use, thumb them, batter them, wear them out, who fill out all the margins with annotations of many kinds, and who prefer the marks of a fault they have erased to a neat copy full of faults. Almost all Christians being wretchedly enslaved to blindness and ignorance, which the priests are so far from preventing or removing, that they blacken the darkness and promote the delusion, wisely foreseeing that the people, like cows, which never give down their milk so well as when they are gently stroked, would part with less if they knew more. Just as nothing is more foolish than misplaced wisdom, so too, nothing is more imprudent than perverse prudence. And surely it is perverse not to adapt yourself to the prevailing circumstances, to refuse to do as the Romans do, to ignore the party-goer's maxim, take a drink or take your leave, to insist that the play should not be a play. True prudence, on the other hand, recognizes human limitations and does not strive to leap beyond them. It is willing to run with the herd, to overlook faults tolerantly, or to share them in a friendly spirit. But they say, that is exactly what we mean by folly. I will hardly deny it as long as they will reciprocate by admitting that this is exactly what it means to perform the play of life. Machines take me by surprise with great frequency. Codes are a puzzle, a game just like any other game. No, I'm not interested in developing a powerful brain. Be courageous, have faith, go forward. The secret of success is focus of purpose. There is a better way for everything, find it. Success is 90% perspiration and 10% inspiration. A diamond is a piece of coal that's stuck to the job. Each time you fail, you have eliminated another wrong option. Continued innovation is the best way to beat the competition. I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. You can't realize your dreams unless you have one to begin with. Fools call wise men fools. A wise man never calls any man a fool. Before you reject an idea, find at least 5 good things about it. Success is based on imagination plus ambition and the will to work. I owe my success to the fact that I never had a clock in my workroom. When you have exhausted all possibilities, remember this, you haven't. I didn't fail 1,000 times. The light bulb was an invention with 1,000 steps. I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. The successful person makes a habit of doing what the failing person doesn't like to do. Our greatest weakness lies in giving up, the most certain way to. Having a vision for what you want is not enough. Vision without execution is hallucination. Opportunity is missed by most people because it is dressed in overalls and looks like work. The first 40 hours of work per week are for survival. Everything after that is for success. I never view mistakes as failures. They are simply opportunities to find out what doesn't work. Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. Our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most certain way to succeed is always to try just one more time. 5% of the people think, 10% of the people think they think, and the other 85% would rather die than think. Every day we present the best quotes. Improve yourself, find your inspiration, share with friends. Remember, life is all what you focus on. Learn lessons and keep moving forward towards your goals and dreams. I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. The most necessary task of civilization is to teach people how to think. It should be the primary purpose of our public schools. The mind of a child is naturally active. It develops through exercise. Give a child plenty of exercise for body and brain. The trouble with our way of educating is that it does not give elasticity to the mind. It casts the brain into a mold. It insists that the child must accept. It does not encourage original thought or reasoning, and it lays more stress on memory than observation. Machines take me by surprise with great frequency. Codes are a puzzle, a game just like any other game. No, I'm not interested in developing a powerful brain. My little computer said such a funny thing this morning. Science is a differential equation. Religion is a boundary condition. If a machine is expected to be infallible, it cannot also be intelligent. Programming is a skill best acquired by practice and example, rather than from books. We are not interested in the fact that the brain has the consistency of cold porridge. We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done. Unless in communicating with it one says exactly what one means, trouble is bound to result. We may hope that machines will eventually compete with men in all purely intellectual fields. Sometimes it is the people know one imagines anything of who do the things that no one can imagine. The original question, can machines think, I believe to be too meaningless to deserve discussion. Must I advance? I think, therefore I am. He who hid well lived well. Doubt is the origin of wisdom. Conquer yourself rather than the world. There is nothing more ancient than the truth. I doubt, therefore I think, therefore I am. But in my opinion, all things in nature occur mathematically. Except our own thoughts, there is nothing absolutely in our power. It is not enough to have a good mind. The main thing is to use it well. In order to improve the mind, we ought less to learn than to contemplate. Divide each difficulty into as many parts as is feasible and necessary to resolve it. The greatest minds are capable of the greatest vices, as well as of the greatest virtues. Each problem that I solved became a rule, which served afterwards to solve other problems. The reading of all good books is like conversation with the finest men of past centuries. To know what people really think, pay attention to what they do, rather than what they say. It is only prudent never to place complete confidence in that by which we have even once been deceived. At last I will devote myself sincerely and without reservation to the general demolition of my opinions. You just keep pushing, you just keep pushing. I made every mistake that could be made, but I just kept pushing. To live without philosophizing is in truth the same as keeping the eyes closed without attempting to open them. I desire to live in peace, and to continue the life I have begun under the motto, to live well, you must live unseen. In order to seek truth, it is necessary once in the course of our life to doubt, as far as possible, of all things. Common sense is the most widely shared commodity in the world, for every man is convinced that he is well supplied with it. Let whoever can do so deceive me, he will never bring it about that I am nothing, so long as I continue to think I am something. If you would be a real seeker after truth, it is necessary that at least once in your life you doubt, as far as possible, all things. For I found myself embarrassed with so many doubts and errors, that it seemed to me that the effort to instruct myself had no effect other than the increasing discovery of my own ignorance. And thus, the actions of life often not allowing any delay, it is a truth very certain that, when it is not in our power to determine the most true opinions, we ought to follow the most probable. I suppose, therefore, that all things I see are illusions. I believe that nothing has ever existed of everything my lying memory tells me. I think I have no senses. I believe that body, shape, extension, motion, location are functions. What is there then that can be taken as true? Perhaps only this one thing, that nothing at all is certain. Machines take me by surprise with great frequency. Codes are a puzzle, a game just like any other game. No, I'm not interested in developing a powerful brain. My little computer said such a funny thing this morning. Science is a differential equation. Religion is a boundary condition. If a machine is expected to be infallible, it cannot also be intelligent. Programming is a skill best acquired by practice and example, rather than from books. We are not interested in the fact that the brain has the consistency of cold porridge. We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done. Unless in communicating with it one says exactly what one means, trouble is bound to result. From a knowledge of his work, we shall know him. Sound consists of an undulating motion of the air. He whose faith never doubted may justly doubt of his faith. Nature always looks out for the preservation of the universe. God is the author of the universe and the free establisher of the laws of motion. God would not have made the universe as it is unless he intended us to understand it. Even when we find not what we seek, we find something as well worth seeking as what we missed. Darkness that here surrounds our purblind understanding will vanish at the dawning of eternal day. He that said it was not good for man to be alone placed the celibate amongst the inferior states of perfection. There is no less invention in aptly applying a thought found in a book than in being the first author of the thought. In the Bible, the ignorant may learn all requisite knowledge, and the most knowing may learn to discern their ignorance. He that condescended so far and stooped so low to invite and bring us to heaven will not refuse us a gracious reception there. Well, I see I am not designed to the finding out the philosopher's stone. I have been so unlucky in my first attempts in chemistry. Female beauties are as fickle in their faces as in their minds. Though casualties should spare them, age brings in a necessity of decay. The gospel comprises indeed, and unfolds, the whole mystery of man's redemption, as far forth as it is necessary to be known for our salvation. As the sun is best seen at his rising and setting, so men's native dispositions are clearest seen when they are children, and when they are dying. I am not ambitious to appear a man of letters. I could be content the world should think I had scarce looked upon any other book than that of nature. Exalt your passion by directing and settling it upon an object the due contemplation of whose loveliness may cure perfectly all hurts received from mortal beauty. The generality of men are so accustomed to judge of things by their senses that, because the air is indivisible, they ascribe but little to it, and think it but one remove from nothing. Our Savior would love at no less rate than death, and from the supereminent height of glory stooped and debased himself to the sufferance of the extremest of indignities, and sunk himself to the bottom of abjectness, to exalt our condition to the contrary extreme. The book of nature is a fine and large piece of tapestry rolled up, which we are not able to see all at once, but must be content to wait for the discovery of its beauty and symmetry, little by little, as it gradually comes to be more and more unfolded or displayed. As the moon, though darkened with spots, gives us a much greater light than the stars that sown all luminous, so do the Scriptures afford more light than the brightest human authors. In them the ignorant may learn all requisite knowledge, and the most knowing may learn to discern their ignorance. I use the Scriptures, not as an arsenal to be resorted to only for arms and weapons, but as a matchless temple where I delight to be, to contemplate the beauty, the symmetry, and the magnificence of the structure, and to increase my awe, and excite my devotion to the deity there preached and adored. And first, it seems not at all probable that if the omniscient author of nature knew that the study of his works did really tend to make men disbelieve his being or attributes, he would have given men so many invitations and almost necessities to study and contemplate the nature of his creatures. Of these invitations divers have been mentioned already, and more might be added to them, if we thought it requisite. And when with excellent microscopes I discern in otherwise invisible objects the inimitable subtlety of nature's curious workmanship, and when, in a word, by the help of anatomical knives and the light of chimical furnaces, I study the book of nature, and consult the glosses of Aristotle, Epicurus, Paracelsus, Harvey, Helmont, and other learned expositors of that instructive volume, I find myself oftentimes reduced to exclaim with the psalmist, "How manifold are thy works, O Lord! In wisdom hast thou made them all." Machines take me by surprise with great frequency. Codes are a puzzle, a game just like any other game. No, I'm not interested in developing a powerful brain. My little computer said such a funny thing this morning. Science is a differential equation. Religion is a boundary condition. If a machine is expected to be infallible, it cannot also be intelligent. Programming is a skill best acquired by practice and example, rather than from books. We are not interested in the fact that the brain has the consistency of cold porridge. We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done. Unless in communicating with it one says exactly what one means, trouble is bound to result. We may hope that machines will eventually compete with men in all purely intellectual fields. Sometimes it is the people know. One imagines anything of who do the things that no one can imagine. The original question, can machines think? Give me blood and I promise you freedom. Those who say that the practice of science is not possible in Bengali either do not know Bengali or do not understand science. The true laboratory is the mind, where behind illusions we uncover the laws of truth. Machines take me by surprise with great frequency. Codes are a puzzle, a game just like any other game. No, I'm not interested in developing a powerful brain. My little computer said such a funny thing this morning. Science is a differential equation. Religion is a boundary condition. If a machine is expected to be infallible, it cannot also be intelligent. Programming is a skill best acquired by practice and example, rather than from books. We are not interested in the fact that the brain has the consistency of cold porridge. We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done. Unless in communicating with it one says exactly what one means, trouble is bound to result. We may hope that machines will eventually compete with men in all purely intellectual fields. Sometimes it is the people know. One imagines anything of who do the things that no one can imagine. Life itself is a quotation. Only in the present do things happen. Truth never penetrates an unwilling mind. Doubt is one of the names of intelligence. Don't talk unless you can improve the silence. The original is unfaithful to the translation. In my next life, I will try to commit more errors. Time forks perpetually toward innumerable futures. Creativity is suspended between memory and forgetting. It only takes two facing mirrors to build a labyrinth. What you really value is what you miss, not what you have. I saw all the mirrors on earth, and none of them reflected me. While we are asleep in this world, we are awake in another one. Being with you, and not being with you, is the only way I have to measure time. When writers die they become books, which is, after all, not too bad an incarnation. So plant your own gardens and decorate your own soul, instead of waiting for someone to bring you flowers. The worst labyrinth is not that intricate form that can entrap us forever, but a single and precise straight line. I can give you my loneliness, my darkness, the hunger of my heart. I am trying to bribe you with uncertainty, with danger, with defeat. Dictatorships foster oppression. Dictatorships foster servitude. Dictatorships foster cruelty. More abominable is the fact that they foster idiocy. I am not sure that I exist, actually. I am all the writers that I have read, all the people that I have met, all the women that I have loved, all the cities I have visited. All that happens to us, including our humiliations, our misfortunes, our embarrassments, all is given to us as raw material, as clay, so that we may shape our art. I am not sure that I exist, actually. I am all the writers that I have read, all the people that I have met, all the women that I have loved, all the cities I have visited. Chuang Tzu tells us of a persevering man who after 3 laborious years mastered the art of dragon slaying. For the rest of his days, he had not a single opportunity to test his skills. Time is the substance from which I am made. Time is a river which carries me along, but I am the river. It is a tiger that devours me, but I am the tiger. It is a fire that consumes me, but I am the fire. If you using local color in an unobtrusive way, it is all for the good. But if you stress it, the whole thing is artificial. But it should be used, it's not forbidden. But you don't have to stress it. Of all man's instruments, the most wondrous, no doubt, is the book. The other instruments are extensions of his body. The microscope, the telescope are extensions of his sight. The telephone is the extension of his voice. Then we have the plow and the sword, extensions of the arm. But the book is something else altogether. The book is an extension of memory and imagination. Machines take me by surprise with great frequency. Codes are a puzzle, a game just like any other game. No, I'm not interested in developing a powerful brain. My little computer said such a funny thing this morning. Science is a differential equation. Religion is a boundary condition. If a machine is expected to be infallible, it cannot also be intelligent. Programming is a skill best acquired by practice and example, rather than from books. We are not interested in the fact that the brain has the consistency of cold porridge. We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done. Unless in communicating with it one says exactly what one means, trouble is bound to result. We may hope that machines will eventually compete with men in all purely intellectual fields. Sometimes it is the people know one imagines anything of who do the things that no one can imagine. The original question, can machines think, I believe to be too meaningless to deserve discussion. To be is to be perceived. All men have opinions, but few think. Few men think, yet all will have opinions. Truth is the cry of all, but the game of few. What is mind? No matter. What is matter? Never mind. We have first raised a dust, and then complain we cannot see. Our youth we can have, but today, we may always find time to grow old. He who says there is no such thing as an honest man, you may be sure is himself a knave. For my own private satisfaction, I had rather be master of my own time than wear a diadem. A ray of imagination or of wisdom may enlighten the universe and glow into remotest centuries. It is impossible that a man who is false to his friends and neighbors should be true to the public. Where the people are well educated, the art of piloting a state is best learned from the writings of Plato. God is a being of transcendent and unlimited perfections. His nature, therefore, is incomprehensible to finite spirits. The world is like a board with holes in it, and the square men have got into the round holes, and the round into the square. The most ingenious men are now agreed that universities are only nurseries of prejudice, corruption, barbarism, and pedantry. To be a good patriot, a man must consider his countrymen as God's creatures, and himself as accountable for his acting towards them. To be is to be perceived ses percipi, or, if a tree falls in the forest and no one is there to hear it, does it make a sound? Others indeed may talk, and write, and fight about liberty, and make an outward pretense to it, but the freethinker alone is truly free. That thing of hell and eternal punishment is the most absurd, as well as the most disagreeable thought that ever entered into the head of mortal man. All the choir of heaven and furniture of earth, in a word, all those bodies which compose the frame of the world, have not any subsistence without a mind. The eye by long use comes to see even in the darkest cavern, and there is no subject so obscure but we may discern some glimpse of truth by long poring on it. Of all men living, priests are our greatest enemies. If it were possible, they would extinguish the very light of nature, turn the world into a dungeon, and keep mankind forever in chains and darkness. Casting an eye on the education of children, from whence I can make a judgment of my own, I observe they are instructed in religious matters before they can reason about them, and consequently that all such instruction is nothing else but filling the tender mind of a child with prejudices. This perceiving, active being is what I call mind, spirit, soul, or myself, by which words I do not denote any one of my ideas, but a thing entirely distinct from them, wherein they exist, or which is the same thing whereby they are perceived, for the existence of an idea consists in being perceived. Did men but consider that the sun, moon, and stars, and every other object of the senses, are only so many sensations in their minds, which have no other existence but barely being perceived, doubtless they would never fall down and worship their own ideas, but rather address their homage to that eternal invisible mind which produces and sustains all things.